Pale Matter presents Edge of the Forgotten. Edge of the Forgotten is a horror podcast series and may contain material not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Please see the episode description for content warnings and additional details. Episode 9. Recognition.
Remy sits alone at the table, his back to the corner of the room, with the usual raucousness of high schoolers at lunch surrounding him. There are hundreds of kids at each lunch period, and as a loner freshman only a couple of weeks into the school year, he should be the obvious target of at least casual bullying. But even with his head up and staring at people, even attempting to do the unthinkable and make prolonged eye contact, no one seems to notice or offer anything more than a cursory glance in return. He's invisible, forgotten, and he hates it. It's not a new experience. This has been his life for a handful of years now. Remy knows deep down this thing, this effect, has been key to his survival, and has even occasionally proven to be handy. He frequently wonders, what if he could go back to the time before? To the beatings from bullies, yes, but also to a mother who hugged him, who remembered to bring him dinner, or to just come home after work and ask him about his day. Or teachers who called on him, who offered the occasional praise, who could remember his name without looking at a seating chart, even at the end of the school year. But each of those memories of normalcy, good or bad, pale to that one long, excruciating encounter in the tunnel. The whispering voices, the cold grip on his arm, pulling him down, the slimy mark that could not be washed off for days, the stench of that slime that clung to him for even longer than that, and the deep-set fear of whatever those things were, returning with a vengeance if he ever tried to get back his before life. And so he sits here alone, watching the world pass before his eyes with a longing sadness and frustrated acceptance. He does take some occasional enjoyment out of his situation, though. As fate would have it, his lunch period is shared with his bully from elementary school. And the 2-year difference in ages still presents in significant physical differences. While Remy is still small for his age, the bully has grown to more than 6 feet in height, with broadening shoulders and muscular arms. He's even grown out a patchy mustache that Remy finds silly and stupid. Remy slips his hand into his right pocket, searching for the pointy metal object he carries on him at all times. He finds the string that it hangs on first and pulls it forward before the sharp edges prick at his fingers, and he wraps his hand tightly around it. The bully passes right in front of Remy's table, chatting with a group of guys, a couple of whom had also chased Remy into the tunnel all those years ago. The guy glances briefly at Remy, and Remy offers him the bird, his arm fully extended. For the briefest of moments, there is a flutter of red fury hate in the bully's eyes and a shift in his posture, like he's preparing to launch himself across the table and pummel the life out of Remy. But it lasts as much as a twitch, and then it's gone. The bully's attention flowing away, back to whatever they were talking about, passing by Remy's table without issue. Remy smiles to himself. His situation is not all bad in the end. Beyond this group, though, at the far end of the cafeteria, a set of eyes lock with Remy's and hold his gaze. He blinks, glances away for a moment, looks back. A girl stands there, perhaps a couple of years older than him. She stares at him with a look of curiosity that he hasn't seen directed his way in many years. And then she does the unthinkable. She starts walking straight toward him. With his right hand still firmly holding the object, he squeezes it hard. Squeezing somehow makes him fade even more, making even the strongest of attention slip off of him. Still, she strides forward, her eyes locked to his, now only a few tables away. She wears dark combat boots, torn black jeans, and a black t-shirt that's so faded and worn that the band name is no longer recognizable. Her chin-length hair is also black, clearly dyed over the natural brown. She spins the chair on the far side of the table with a quick twist of her wrist and straddles it. Her glance flits to the gang of guys that Remy had just flipped off and who have now settled outside for lunch before returning her attention to him. "How'd you do that?" she asks. Flustered, Remy can only stammer out, a few times. "No, seriously, spill it," she says. "What do you have over him? That guy's a dick and a half. No way he's letting that go. You should be a thin crimson smear on the lunchroom floor right now. What's the story? Your dad a cop? You save his dog's life or something?" Remy swallows hard. "I don't think he saw me. I mean, he didn't seem to notice." "Yeah," she says. "That's the thing. No one seemed to notice. Not one person here." "No one ever really does," Remy says. He keeps a tight grip on the medallion to the point of worrying if his fingers might be bleeding. But still, she keeps looking at him. "You look like you're concentrating really hard," she says. "You're weird. I like it. What's your name?" He loosens his grip, but doesn't yet pull his hand out of his pocket before introducing himself. "Remy," he says, even as he realizes she won't remember, because no one ever remembers. "I'm Selena," she says, "but you can call me Seli." They talk for a bit, with Seli doing most of the talking, asking questions, covering the basics. "What grade are you in? What part of town do you live in? Who's your favorite teacher so far?" Remy finds himself blushing at times, because he knows his answers are lame. There's nothing interesting when you're a virtual ghost in a school of 800 students. But he also realizes he's blushing, because she keeps looking at him, not through him, and it's the first time that's happened in a very long time. "I'm sorry, I'm just not that interesting," he says, breaking away from her gaze. Seli smiles, and it feels genuine. "You might be the most interesting person here." The bell rings for the end of the period, and Seli looks at the clock. "I guess that's our cue. Thanks for flipping the asshole off. That might be the funniest thing I've seen so far this year. You're still gonna tell me how you did that, though." "Yeah, maybe," he says. "Okay, see you around, kid," Seli says as she gets up. "Remy. My name is Remy," he says. "I know, you told me earlier. I'll remember." He thinks to himself, "I doubt that." But she does. From that point on, Seli finds him at the start of lunch, chatting away like she's known him for a long time. And in many ways, he feels the same. He learns that she doesn't really hang out with other people either, though it's clear that it's a choice for her. For whatever reason, she just enjoys being on her own. She tells him how she moved here several years ago after her mother died, and she came to live with her great-aunt, and how her great-aunt lets her do pretty much anything she wants. And near the end of the lunch period, she asks him how he got away with giving the finger to Todd, the dickbag. But he just shrugs and says something non-committal. One day, after sitting down with her lunch tray, Seli offers him a deal. "You know, Todd used to try to bully me when I first moved here, but that didn't end up working out so well for him. How about this? I tell you why he leaves me alone, and in return, you tell me your story. That sound like a deal?" Remy knows he's not going to tell the whole story, but maybe part of it is okay. "When I first moved here," she says, "it was like everyone already had their established friend groups, and I guess I was just the weird one. You know, the quiet girl in all black who always sits alone. And my great-aunt must have told the teachers about my recently dead mom, thinking that it would help make everyone more sympathetic to me. Something like that, I guess. But I was the odd one out, and honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. Being on my own meant I didn't have to do anything I didn't want to do. But you stand out when you're the loner, and that's like blood in the water to bullies. I don't know, their wiring is broken or something. Anyway, he and his asshole squad cornered me one day in the hall and told me I had a week to start coughing up money, or else he was going to take something else personally from me. I was 10. Maybe I had just turned 11, and I had no idea what he meant, but it was a threat regardless. And I wasn't interested in taking shit from him." She hesitates here, like she's thinking of how best to tell the story, or how much to give away. "I have this friend," she says after a few moments. "Kind of a special friend of sorts. And I don't know how, but this friend of mine knows things. They tell me of a place where Todd's going to be all on his own, And if I find him first, I can surprise him. Surprise him well enough and he'll just leave me alone. And so, I did just that. I caught him walking home from a friend's house just after it had gotten dark, and I jumped up from behind a bush quickly enough that he didn't have time to react, and I popped him right in the nose and dropped him on his butt. The roll of nickels in my hand didn't hurt, I guess. I don't think I've ever seen someone bleed so much. I told him that this was the only warning he was going to get, and if he thought he was going to keep bullying me, or worse, try to get even, I was always going to get there first. Of course the guy can't take no quite that easily, especially from a girl, and someone like him just lives off fantasizing about violence. He dreamt up all kinds of ways to get his revenge. I could feel it. And eventually he settled on a plan. He was going to make me hurt. But like before, my friend knew. Somehow they always knew these things. And so, like I told him, I was going to get there first. He planned to ambush me on the way to school. Even had one of those mini baseball bats with him. But I was already hidden where he planned to hide, and I broke his nose for a second time. He cried that time. Maybe out of surprise or frustration, I don't know. I took that bat too. I still have it. He tried one last time a few years later. I think he believed that letting his revenge get so cold that somehow I'd forget all about him. But I knew. Well, my friend did. And this time, I let his mini bat do all of the work. He was a mess for weeks. And that was that. I guess after 3 times he realized that, for whatever reason, he was not going to be able to surprise me. After the 2nd time, he and his asshole squad left me alone. After the 3rd time, well, he stopped looking at me altogether. She smiles at the end and gestures at Remy. Your turn, her hands say. Remy blushes, knowing he can't help himself. Since that first day she sat here, he hasn't gone more than a few minutes without thinking about her or finding her in his dreams. And he knows that she's older than him, and so much cooler than he'll ever be. And now he knows she's the biggest badass in the school as well. And he's about to tell her how the same bully chased him into a dark tunnel one day, and how that changed his life forever. But he does just that, using up the rest of the lunch period. He doesn't skip many details, and she lets him talk without interruption. He tells her of the frequent bullying for years beforehand, and about the tunnel, and how he had been afraid of it, and how the bullies forced him to go in. He speaks about how unbearably dark it was in there and how scared he was, and how impossibly, in a tunnel that should have been no more than 4 or 5 feet wide, he found himself in the middle of the darkness with no walls at all. And the whispers. He tells himself not to get into those details, but there he is, the words just spilling out of him. His hands begin shaking so much at this that he instinctively shoves one into his pocket to grip the metal object. It helps to steady him enough to finish the tale, and he speaks about the thing that gripped him and tried to pull him into the wet muck, as unbelievable as it must sound. But he doesn't mention what he found, nor the other voice he heard that led him to it. When he finishes, she doesn't smile or even speak right away. She just looks at him, with so much care in her face, like how his mom used to look at him after he had a nasty fall. All he wants in this moment is for her to hold him like his mother used to. Wow, she finally says quietly. That sounds horrible. And after that, they never bothered you again? It was like I was different after being in there, he says. Like being touched somehow made me different. She glances at the clock. There's only a minute or 2 before the bell will ring, and then looks steadily into his eyes. And you didn't find anything in there? In the tunnel? In the dark? She asks this quietly. No, he's about to say, because no one can know about the medallion. People will do horrible things to get a hold of this possession. He knows this as clear as day. But he trusts her and wants no secrets between them. This is a big thing to share, his biggest secret, and he starts pulling it out of his pocket. She grabs his free hand and squeezes it, and he freezes in return. This is the first time she's touched him, and her hand is warm and soft and insistent. She doesn't say anything, but instead shakes her head no. There's an intense seriousness in her eyes as she shakes her head. The bell rings and it breaks the moment. She gets up to leave, but Remy stays seated. You'll be late to your next class, she says. Remy smiles at her. They never seem to notice. There's a shift after that day. like they're even closer than before. Seli touches him more, on his hand or arm, and he likes that feeling. She also takes to calling him little brother, and while that stings the part of his heart that holds his crush for her, he still finds a great warmth in her words and her presence. But then there's the favor. It's late October now, and the school has been in session for almost 2 months at this point. Remy has nearly forgotten those first couple of weeks and that feeling of being completely invisible. He still is to everyone but Seli, but she makes up for them all. When she mentions the favor, it's not something she asks for directly, but instead phrases it in a softer way. She was thinking this would be something fun to do together. Just a little thing she needs help with. "See, there's this book I've been reading," she says. "The one on the occult. You've seen me with it." He had. It was a large, thick paperback book with a scuffed black cover and strange red symbols on it. He'd seen her carrying it around between classes along with her other school books, as well as a few times during lunch, though it never came up in conversation. "My history teacher took it earlier today. Said I wasn't paying attention in class and that I most certainly shouldn't be doodling inside a book. I mean, it's my book. I could burn it if I wanted to. But the teacher's always been a hard ass, and he threw it into his desk. Said he was going to send it up to the vice principal and that the VP and I can have a conversation about respect for the teacher's time and respect for property." She looks as if she's trying to come across as distressed, but there's a mischievousness in her eyes. "So, hear me out. We meet up by the big tree out on the south field around 9 p.m. My history class is on the ground floor, and I've unlocked the far window in that room. It's partially covered by the blinds, and I don't think anyone will check it at the end of the school day. So tonight, I help you in through the window. You figure out how to get into his desk and grab the book before he sends it to the office. And if there's any problem, well, you do your thing, you know? No one will see you. In and out, quick and easy." As she tells him this, he can feel his heart sinking. It's not the favor per se, though he feels weird about using his affliction in such a way. But what makes his palms sweat is the thought of sneaking into the school at night and in the dark. Somehow it makes him think about the tunnel and its darkness and, "Are we cool?" she asks. "Are you okay with this?" She squeezes his hand gently. He wants to say no, it's not cool. He's not okay, he can't do this. But her hand presses into his, and she looks at him like she means to be there with him. "This is us. We can do this," the look says. Yeah, he says. "No, yeah, sure, let's do it." She hugs him then, as he feels his face flush. There's no backing out now. It's later that evening, the air cool and crisp. He gets to the tree 20 minutes early and finds that she's just arriving herself. She smiles as if she knew. They talk quietly as she leads him to the side of the building, keeping an eye out for anyone and taking a serpentine path to avoid the lights near the parking lot. It takes her a few minutes to identify the correct room from the outside of the building, but she does and pulls open the furthestmost window with little effort. The room beyond is dark, but there's a faint light coming from the window and the door. Before he hops onto the sill and squeezes through the window, she presses something cool into the palm of his hand. "Here, take my knife. You might need to work the lock on the desk." He looks at it for a moment. It's bigger than he expects. A folding knife with a black handle and a long blade. He keeps it folded, slips it into his back pocket, and slips through the window. He just wants to be quick, in and out like she said, so he goes straight to the desk. As predicted, the drawers are locked. "There should be a lever with the center drawer," she says from the open window, trying to be as quiet as possible. "Slip the blade through the top, and you should be able to get it open. After that, the rest should be easy." It doesn't work that way at all. He can get the knife in and feel the locking mechanism, but nothing he does gets it to turn. He tries the other drawers, but they're all locked as well, and are just as resistant to the knife trick. Focusing back on the center drawer, he can tell the desk is old as the drawer feels loose and is easily shakeable, and so he does just that. Working vigorously, and then violently, he's able to vibrate it loose. Inside are the usual desk items: pens, pencils, a small notebook, post-it notes, and there, way in the back, is a key that looks to be a spare. And it is, fitting perfectly into the desk locks. He opens the rest of the drawers in quick succession, thumbs through folders and stacks of paper and what appears to be the remains of an old lunch sack. But there is no book. "Any luck?" Seli loudly whispers. He puts the desk back in order, locking each drawer as he goes, including the center one. He's not sure what to do with the spare key, so he pockets it with a shrug. "Nothing," he says, showing his empty hands. He starts walking back toward the window. "I bet it's in the office," she says. "Yeah, that sucks," he says in return, ready to climb out the window. "Wait!" She puts her hands against his legs to stop him. "You can just go look, right? Maybe you can get into the office easily, just a quick look." He starts to say. Of course he can do this. The room was one thing, though. Tromping through the whole darkened school is another level entirely. "Just a quick look?" she says again. For her, he nods. Just a quick look, he thinks to himself as he heads toward the door. Seli whisper yells one last time before he leaves. "We're gonna have to teach you how to pick locks one of these days." There's an excitement in her voice he wishes he shared. Now, out in the hallway, that reminder of the darkness in the tunnel hits him hard. A few lights work down either direction of the hall, but between them, everything sumps to deeper darkness. He swallows, a sudden dryness in his mouth. "There's nothing here," he tells himself, and tries forgetting the memory of thinking the exact same thing in the old tunnel. He takes the shortest path to the office. Left down the hall, a turn to the right, a short distance, and then another turn to the left. There's a bit more light here, as this hallway ends at the offices and the building entrance. But between here and the end, Remy can easily see the silhouette of a custodian, pushing a dust mop along the way, heading straight toward him. He shoves his hands in his pocket and grabs the cool pointy thing in one hand, and then makes straight for the guy. Remy knows that the offices will be locked. If a simple teacher's desk was locked up, surely the office would be too. But the guy working in front of him would have a set of keys, and if he can flip off his bully in the middle of a busy lunchroom without getting pounded mercilessly, lifting a set of keys off a busy custodian should be no big thing. But he has never done such a thing before. Something so brazen, so active. This is not him. The custodian is big and blocks most of the light as Remy approaches. The guy looks up from his task, just as Remy steps within a dozen feet away and locks eyes with him. He's wearing headphones, but he's looking right at Remy. He frowns, glances away, and then looks up again. There's confusion there. Clearly he sees something that he shouldn't be seeing in an empty school. All the while, Remy squeezes his hand tight around the object, tighter and tighter, just waiting for it to erase him from view. "I'm not here," Remy tells himself. "Just a shadow in the hallway. I am nothing, you don't see me." The school custodian opens his mouth slightly, as if he's just about to say something, but then he hesitates, as if fighting the confusion. And then it dawns on Remy. He's not holding his medallion, but rather the key to the desk. In a flurry, he scrambles in his pocket. There's nothing else here besides the key and the medallion, but it feels like forever to drop one and latch onto the other. "Hey, are you supposed to be here?" the guy asks while choking up on the dust mop handle. He starts to walk forward, quickly closing the distance between he and Remy. Remy gets a good grip on the medallion and squeezes tight, the jagged bits digging into the palm of his hand. He even squeezes his eyes shut for good measure. He doesn't see the guy stop and settle back into a briefly confused state, but he hears it. When Remy opens his eyes again, he sees the custodian back in work mode, pushing his dust mop down the floor of the hallway, listening to the music coming from his headphones, clearly everything forgotten. And he sees the big key ring hanging right on his hip. It takes a bit more effort for Remy to work up the courage to grab the keys. It's one thing to be completely forgotten, overlooked, but now he has to physically interact with someone too. Does it still work like normal? He finally moves again, hesitantly, trying to match the steps of the custodian as he works to minimize bumping into him. It helps, but there's a brief contact where they touch, and where the guy can't sweep with Remy right there. The confusion returns for the custodian, and there's a quick flash of his eyes, even with Remy bearing down on his medallion. Even with all the effort to not be seen, there are clearly limits with so much interaction going on. Remy gets his free hand on the keys and pulls them hard. They're connected by a retractable lanyard, but the quick yank snaps whatever's on the other end and pops them free. With the contact broken and in stuttered fits, the custodian shifts back into work mode, with Remy and the encounter forgotten once more. Remy waits for a few moments for his heart to settle. The guy keeps moving further down the hall, away from the office, again lost in his music. Once calmed, Remy makes short work of the walk and finds the key to the office door quickly enough. He's never been here before, never gotten into trouble, never had need to come to the offices for anything else, but it doesn't matter, because the book is sitting right next to the secretary's computer, on top of a small pile of file folders. There is a post-it note on top. He doesn't even look at the note. He just grabs the book and heads out, making sure to lock the office again. He takes the same path back, passing the custodian while squeezing his medallion. A couple dozen feet later, just before making his turn, Remy drops the keys into the middle of the floor, directly in the custodian's path, for the man to find in a few moments. After that, he keeps his focus on getting to the room and getting out. Seli's there, and her excitement is obvious. He hands her the book before hopping through the window. "Wow, that was quick," she says. "You're good at this." He's outside once more, and the relief washes over him. The air is clearer here, like he can breathe more easily. "Yeah," he says, thinking this is the first and last time he does something so foolhardy, but he is wrong about this. She leads him back over to the big tree, asking about how it went along the way. He tells her the story, the encounter with the custodian, and after a brief hesitation, he even mentions the irrational fear when he was first in the hallway, and how it reminded him of whatever was in the tunnel. She takes his free hand when he mentions this, as if to comfort him. And then, he tells her of his talisman, how he found it in the tunnel, and how he's carried it on him ever since. How it affects him with everyone but her, and how he fears what might happen should he ever lose it. He tells her about getting the key in his pocket mixed up with the medallion during his encounter, and how even with squeezing it tight, there was some recognition when touching him. She's quiet throughout all of this, but she holds his hand firmly. He thinks to himself that she might apologize for asking him to do all of this, or to even thank him, but she does neither. Instead, she asks him about the whispers in the tunnel. He doesn't answer right away, and certainly doesn't want to think about them. Not that he can help himself in that regard. Finally, he says, "There were several, and they were wet like rotting mouths of dead things, and they wanted me to join them, become one of them. It was the worst thing I've ever heard. Those voices are scarred into my mind, but there was another voice, though I don't think I actually heard it, like it was in my head somehow. It saved me. It directed me to find this object, my talisman, like it knew it would help." She squeezes his hand even more strongly at this. "I hear a voice too," she says after a minute. "I can't remember a time when I didn't hear this voice. When I was a young kid, my parents called it my imaginary friend. But it wasn't imaginary. And eventually, it was my only friend. It still is. Until you showed up." She hugs him, pulling him tight to her body. "Are you squeezing your talisman right now?" she whispers into his ear. "Can you?" He does so with one hand, while holding her firmly with his free arm. She whispers again, her mouth pressed to his ear. "Sometimes, though, I'm not sure about the voice I hear. It told me you had something special." There's a worry in her voice, like she's afraid of saying these things. "I don't think everything it wants is good."
Edge of the Forgotten is a Pale Matter podcast distributed by the Realm Podcast Network. Our theme music was created by composer Jimmy Svensson and is available for purchase. See the episode description for more details. If you like what you've heard today, We encourage you to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast app. And please share this show. This helps us grow our audience, which in turn helps us produce more episodes. For more detailed information about Edge of the Forgotten, credits for this particular episode, or the production team behind this series, please visit our website at www.palematter.com or see the episode description to find out how to listen to our shows, follow us on social media, or connect with us on Discord. For a deeper dive into Edge of the Forgotten, check out our Patreon, where we offer insights and supporting information, physical and digital props, bonus episodes and recordings, and other assets that expand the story in a variety of ways. Thank you for listening.